I never meant to be a hero. If you're looking for medals or glory, you won't find it here. My name is James Rowe, but most of the boys in my unit called me Jimmy. I was just 19 when I first stepped foot on French soil in the summer of 1944. Normandy smelled like salt and smoke, and I swear, the sky had a weight I'd never felt before. We landed at Omaha Beach under gunfire so thick it felt like the rain came sideways. I still remember the feel of the cold steel ramp dropping, the chaos of men screaming, bullets tearing through the surf, and the way my boots filled with seawater and blood. I carried a letter in my breast pocket, one I wrote to my mother the night before the invasion. I never sent it. Still have it. Folded, stained, unread. That morning, I saw my best friend Eddie take a hit to the chest before we even made it 10 feet. He was gone before he hit the sand. And I just kept running. Not because I was brave, but because I was terrified. That's the truth people don't tell you. Fear moves your legs more than courage ever will. I didn't know it then, but that was just the beginning. The worst was yet to come. And somehow, I kept going. The beach was behind us, but its screams echoed in my head. We pushed inland through hedgerows thick with thorns and whispers. Every step felt like walking through someone else's nightmare. I hadn't eaten in nearly a day, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from hunger but from something deeper, something I didn't have a name for back then. We lost 3 more men that first night. Mines. One moment we were joking about how bad the rations were, and the next, silence. The kind of silence that doesn't make a sound, but you feel it in your teeth. I had Eddie's dog tags in my pocket, and now I was collecting more. Corporal Davis told me, "Keep moving, Rowe. Grieve later." But I didn't know when later was supposed to come. There's no schedule for sorrow in war. We dug in near a barn that reeked of damp hay and manure. That night, I lay on the cold earth, staring at the stars. They looked the same as back home. I wondered if my little sister was looking up at the same sky, safe in bed, with no idea what her big brother had seen today. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Not because I was strong, but because the tears just wouldn't come. We stayed in that barn for 2 nights, waiting for orders. The air was thick with sweat, smoke, and the kind of fear no one dares speak aloud. On the second morning, I found a boy hiding in the loft, maybe 10 years old, wearing clothes too, sizes too big and eyes too old for his face. He didn't speak English, and I didn't speak French, but we didn't need words. He was scared. I was scared. We understood each other just fine. I gave him a piece of chocolate from my ration. He took it like it might vanish if he blinked. Then he pulled out a torn photo from his pocket. His parents, I think. He pointed toward the east and made a motion across his throat. I got the message. They were gone. I wanted to do something, anything, but I couldn't even protect my own. We moved out that afternoon, and I never saw the boy again. Before we left, he hugged me. Tight. Like I was the last good thing he'd touched in this world. That night, I thought about my mother again. About how I'd promised her I'd come home. I didn't know how to keep that promise anymore, but I still had the letter, still folded, still unread. By the 4th day, we were deep in the bocage, the twisted hedgerows of Normandy that turned every field into a trap. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere. You couldn't see more than 20 feet ahead, and every rustle of leaves sounded like death coming. We were ambushed near a narrow lane flanked by trees. The first shot took out our radio man. No warning, just blood and screaming. We scrambled for cover as German machine guns opened up from the hedgerows. Dirt exploded around me. I hit the ground hard, my helmet cracking against a stone. We returned. Fire blindly. I didn't even know where to aim. Sergeant Miller shouted orders, but they were swallowed by the gunfire. He ran forward, to flank them, and never came back. I crawled through mud and roots until I saw one of them. A German soldier, young like me, maybe younger. He was bleeding, stuck in the brush. We locked eyes for a second that felt like forever. He looked terrified, just like I was. I raised my rifle, but I didn't shoot. I couldn't. Not this time. He didn't shoot either. We both turned away. War makes you a killer. But sometimes, only sometimes, it shows you you're still human. After the ambush, we were down to 7 men. We buried Sergeant Miller behind an old stone wall and marked the spot with his helmet. No time for prayers, just a name scratched into wood with a bayonet. We kept moving. The weight of my pack seemed, to grow heavier each day. Not because of supplies, but because of what I was carrying inside. Eddie's tags, Miller's compass, a letter from home I hadn't opened, and guilt. Always the guilt. Private Morales started talking to himself, said he saw his mother in the trees. No one stopped him. Who were we to question madness in a place like this? One night, I took out the letter again, unfolded it. The paper was worn thin, stained from sweat, almost unreadable. But the words were still mine. Dear Mom, if you're reading this, I made it through the landing, but I hadn't made it through. Not really. Part of me was still back on that beach, soaked in fear and blood. Part of me would never leave. I folded the letter and put it back in my pocket. Still unread. Still waiting. We found shelter in a crumbling farmhouse outside St. Lo. The roof was half gone, and the windows were shattered, but it was the first dry place we'd seen in days. We took turns keeping watch, rifles always in arm's reach, sleep never deep, enough to forget where we were. Inside, we found a photograph on the floor, dusty, cracked. A family of 4, smiling. A mother, a father, 2 daughters. Gone now, probably. War has a way of emptying places like ghosts do. That night, during my watch, I saw movement in the distance. Shadows creeping between the trees. I raised my rifle, finger on the trigger, breath held. Then I heard it, crying, soft, fragile. Not a soldier's cry, but a child's. We found her hiding in the cellar, a girl, maybe 6, clutching a doll with one button eye. Morales gave her his canteen. She didn't speak, just stared, wide-eyed and hollow. She slept beside us that night, curled up next to me like I was her brother. I wanted to believe I could protect her, that maybe I still had something good left in me. But morning came with thunder, not from the sky, but from tanks. The enemy was near, and the farmhouse would become a battlefield. At dawn, the shells started falling. The first hit the barn out back. The second took out the corner of the house. The girl screamed just once, and then covered her ears. I pulled her into the fireplace, the only place with stone thick enough to feel safe. We returned fire through the broken windows, spraying bullets into the trees. I couldn't see who I was shooting at. Just flashes of muzzle fire, shadows between leaves. Morales took a hit to the leg. I dragged him behind an overturned table, tied a belt around his thigh, told him to hold on. The air inside the farmhouse turned black with smoke and dust. Plaster fell from the ceiling. The doll was crushed under a beam. I don't know why, but that image stuck with me. The way her button eyes stared up through the rubble. The girl didn't cry anymore. She just stared at the wall, like her soul had gone somewhere far away. We held them off for what felt like hours. Maybe it was minutes. Time twists in combat. You live a lifetime between seconds. When it was over, 4 of us were still breathing. Barely. The girl was alive. That felt like a win. But as I looked around at what was left of the farmhouse, I wondered, was there anything left of me? We buried Morales behind the farmhouse. He bled out before medics arrived. Never cried, never begged, just whispered something I couldn't hear, and then he was gone. I carved his name into a piece of wood and stuck it in the ground. That's all we could give him. We had to move again. The girl, Elise, we learned her name was, walked with us. She held my hand like she'd done it her whole life. I think we became something to each other out there, in that hell. I wasn't just a soldier anymore. I was her shield. The roads were empty, lined with burned-out vehicles and bodies covered by blankets. Sometimes, not even that. The smell of death wasn't strong anymore. We were used to it. One morning, while we rested near a field, Elise tugged my sleeve and pointed to a necklace in the dirt. A silver cross. I picked it up and stared. It was warm from the sun, but still somehow felt cold in my hand. I put it around her neck. She smiled for the first time. It broke me. Not the fighting, not the killing, not even the losses. Her smile, something so human in a world so broken, was what finally brought the tears. I turned away so no one would see. We reached the edge of a village held by German forces. Our orders were clear. Take the town, hold the bridge. Reinforcements were days behind us. We were low on ammo, exhausted, and barely more than shadows of the men who landed on that beach. But we went in anyway. It started with a flash, then chaos. Bullets sang past my head like angry hornets. I kicked down a door and cleared a house room by room. Every corner could have been the last thing I saw. I stopped thinking, just moved, aimed, fired, survived. At one point, I turned, and Elise wasn't there. Panic cut through me sharper than any bullet ever could. I ran through smoke and rubble, screaming her name. Found her in a cellar, hiding behind barrels. She was crying again. I picked her up, held her tight, told her we'd leave soon, but I wasn't sure that was true. By nightfall, we had the village, what was left of it, and of us. Elise fell asleep in my lap. My hands were black with soot and blood. My rifle rested across my knees, like it was part of me now. Maybe it was. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the letter. For the first time, I opened it and I read it. Dear Mom, if you're reading this, I made it through the landing. Things are rough, but I'm holding on. I think about home every day, about your cooking, Dad's stories, and Sarah's laugh. I miss it all more than I thought I would. But don't worry about me. I've got good men beside me. I'll be okay. Love, Jimmy. I read those words by candlelight, in a shattered town, with a sleeping child in my arms and memories I'd carry for the rest of my life. The letter felt like it belonged to someone else now, someone younger, someone untouched by what I'd seen. But still, I was proud of that boy. I folded it carefully and tucked it back into my pocket. This time, not to forget, but to remember Eddie. Morales, Sergeant Miller, the boy in the barn, the doll in the rubble, the pain, the hope, the humanity. The next morning, we handed Elise over to a Red Cross unit. She didn't want to let go, and neither did I, but I promised her I'd write. I still do letters she'll never read, but I write them anyway, because that's what kept me going through the fire. Not hatred, not revenge, but the belief that even in war, something good was worth holding on to.